This is a really awkward video to be making, especially because it's something that I've tried to keep a secret in my real life for such a long time. I've tried so hard to come across as this confident, happy, independent person, to hide how I was feeling and to hide what my struggles were. But I've personally watched a lot of videos like this on YouTube before, and I find them really reassuring to know that I'm not alone, which is why I thought I'd make my own video on this. Now, I don't really know where to start, if I'm honest with you, because as a child, I actually didn't have any problems making friends. I was shy to some degree if I was with my family, for example, but at school I had no problems and I made friends pretty easily. In fact, I not only made friends, but in my friendship groups, I was one of the more active and one of the more extroverted people, which is really hard to believe now considering how introverted I am. I really put myself out there. I would be singing and dancing at lunchtimes, and I'd be part of school plays, and I was just very socially active in general. Even joining my secondary school, even though I was nervous for my first day, which I think is really normal because most kids are, I became friends with people really easily. I went to an all-girls school and I became part of a friendship group at a pretty early stage. So there were 6 of us and we stayed friends from about the age of 11 to 18. And for those 7 years, I was, like I said, one of the more extroverted ones. I was very active in our friendship group and I tried really hard to keep that friendship group together. I made as much effort as I could as a friend, and I would spend my time after school on the phone to my friends, especially to 2 of the girls who I considered my best friends. But they were friendships that made me happy and I enjoyed being at school because I had those friendships. I had no issues talking to people and I was very confident at school, very comfortable being around lots of people, talking on stage and just being very active in the school. Then things took a sudden change for me when I was in year 13, so I was just shy of being 18, and like I said, I had been friends with this group of girls since the age of 11. Year 13 would have been my last year at this school before university, and in my school it was really normal for friends to plan a holiday at the end of the year, so I was really looking forward to that because one, I wanted something to look forward to before university, but also it would have been my first holiday with a group of friends. So that's what my expectation was and I was so excited for it. And then everything just changed. So I basically just went into school one day and overheard some friends talking about this holiday, and I went up to my group of friends, I went up to my best friend who was with the rest of the group, and I went up to her and I asked, what's going on? I've just heard that you guys are planning a holiday, what about me, what's happened? And she very bluntly just said to me, we've taken a vote and we've decided that we don't want to be friends with you anymore. And I was really confused and I asked, what have I done wrong? I'm really confused, like, what have I done? And she said, nothing, we just decided that we don't like you anymore. And I just kind of stared at her really blankly and I was really confused because there was no build up to this. So just the day before I was friends with her, I was talking to the whole group, everything was very normal, and just overnight it just changed. So I kind of just stared at her blankly, but she had a very straight face on. I looked at the rest of the girls, they all had their heads down, they weren't even looking at me, and I just walked out of the sixth form block just really confused, not really understanding it. I didn't cry, I think I was just in shock, and it was just a lot to process because I just kind of went from having this really stable friendship group that I had years of memories with to just suddenly being really lost and not knowing what was going on, and I just didn't really understand it. And at the time, all I could wonder was, what had I done wrong, or what was it about me? I began to really overthink everything. I began to wonder whether it was my voice, whether it was how fast or how slow I talked, whether it was because I was too boring or not funny enough, or my taste in music. And the only people that I really had to talk about this with was my mum and one of my teachers, both of whom said that it might be jealousy because I just got into dental school at the time, but I didn't really understand it. I couldn't process anyone doing that just because I'd gotten into dental school. Like, I didn't really think that was enough of a reason, so I kept trying to find the reasons and kept trying to understand it. The thing that I struggled with most was that I was in year 13, everyone was in their friendship groups, everyone was planning their holidays with their friends and looking forward to university, and I was suddenly in a position where I felt like I had no friends at school and I didn't know what to do with myself. So when lunch breaks happened, I was filled with dread because I didn't know who to sit with or where to go, and a lot of the time I just ended up in the library studying and doing my homework because it just felt easier. I really struggled to walk into the sixth form block or into school without thinking that people were talking about me or watching me, and I ended up going to classes 10 minutes earlier just to avoid people. And I tried to just focus on studying, getting my A-levels and getting into dental school, and I was really excited and really relieved that I had university around the corner because I thought it could be a second chance. Then I I started university, and the problem with starting university is that I started it at a place where I was really insecure. I don't think I realized how insecure I was at the time, but I went in not feeling great about myself and not knowing how to be myself. I didn't know how to be because I was always overthinking things. I didn't know whether I could share, my taste in music or the things that I enjoyed doing. I felt really anxious to join any social groups or any clubs or go to classes or do anything like that because I just didn't know where I would belong. And so I really, really struggled with it. Now, I still ended up making a friendship group at university, but it was a very superficial friendship. It was more on the basis of going out and socializing, and I didn't really try to find any friends who were on the same wavelength as me. I was just so relieved to have people to be associated with, people to go out with, people to sit with at lunchtime. That's all I cared about, and the fact that I had that was enough at the time. I also decided to focus more on relationships, so having a boyfriend, than friendships, because I think I was just put off friendships and I didn't know how to be in friendships. So instead I focused on my boyfriend at the time because I just found it so much easier to focus on one person than focus on socializing in general. So even with this social group that I had to go out with and having a boyfriend to focus on, I still really struggled with university, mainly for 3 reasons. So the first is that we had quite a large year group, which meant that every year we were put into different clinical groups. So even though I had this friendship group, I was with different people during the day. I wasn't always with the same people. And so it meant that every year I would have this struggle of who am I going to be around during the day. The other thing is that after my 3rd year, I intercalated. So I basically took a year out of dentistry to do another degree, and then I went back into dentistry in my 4th year. So that basically meant that I was in a brand new year group, and my social group from the other year completely fizzled because, there was just no substance there to really begin with. So when I wasn't seeing them, it basically just fizzled, and that was fine. And then I was in a new year group where people had already made their friendships, so it was really hard to become part of any other friendships, and I just felt like an outsider for so long. And the third reason is that I was at university for 6 years, and 6 years is a really long time to be at university. Most people are at university for 3 years and it goes so fast. I was at university for 6 years. I was part of 3 different year groups, and so these social aspects of university really started to wear me down. I started to really struggle towards the end of university, and on a whole, I didn't really enjoy university at all. I know most people say it was the best years of their life. To be honest, I felt so trapped. I felt like I was just so insecure for the most part of it, and I was just constantly having this burden on my head of who do I hang out with, how do I act around people, do people like me, like what do I need to be like in order for people to like me. So I was just becoming this person who was just overthinking everything, and I feel like university really made the feelings that I had at the end of school a lot worse. And then towards the end of university, I went to this lecture on communication, and I remember asking the lecturer in the Q&A at the end something along the lines of, what advice would you give to someone who overthinks all of their conversations and then when the conversation is over, overthinks everything that they've said? And that lecturer said to me, well, to be honest, that sounds to me like social anxiety. Now, at this point, I had never heard of social anxiety. I don't think mental health was as big of a thing then as it is now. And also I'm from an Asian background, so we don't tend to talk about mental health much at all. But I went home and I Googled social anxiety, and it was like a wave of relief, if I'm honest with you. It was really relieving to know that a lot of the things that I was going through, like all of these signs, were connected in some way, and it gave me this sense of peace to know that these things weren't part of my personality but were part of maybe something else. Whether I had social anxiety or not, it was just nice to know that they weren't necessarily integral to me. So for example, me overthinking everything and getting really nervous about what to say to people, or overthinking the way that I talk or things like that, I always thought that was just integral to who I am. Like I thought maybe that's part of my introversion or just part of my ability to make friends. Like I thought I couldn't make friends because of who I was. Knowing social anxiety existed ended up giving me more confidence actually. And I know that sounds weird, but it gave me confidence to know that maybe there is a part of me that can make friends. Maybe this social anxiety side is just a part of me, but not me. So I started to put myself out there a little bit more. So I contacted one of the girls from my old school. I joined Bumble BFF to try and, meet people outside of school and meet people outside of university. I went to art classes, I went to singing classes, I tried so many different things. And even though they all weren't fruitful, it still gave me relief to know that I could do that. Like I had this sense of control over the situation, whereas previously I just thought it was part of me. And then I left university, which was just the biggest relief for me, if I'm honest with you. I feel like school and university can be really difficult because they're social constructs which force you into social situations. You're forced to be around the same people all of the time, and that's really hard if you've not found your people there and you've not found the right people for you there. And it's really hard because we grow up watching TV shows and movies where people make loads of friends at school and university and they stay with those friends throughout their lifetime, when that's just not realistic for the most of us. And we're also faced now with social media where we see what friendships look like on social media, and again, that's not real for all of us. And finally, when I left university and I left school, I was finally free from these social constructs that told me that I had to have these certain friendships. So finally I could feel more free to just be myself. And so since leaving university, I feel like I have become more of myself. I feel like even though I'm a lot more introverted now, I've really just focused on myself, and I've focused on finding that peace within myself. Do I still have social anxiety? Well, do you know what? Sometimes I can walk into a room and be the most confident person and own that room, and other times I'll walk into a room and feel completely crippled and want to just run into the toilet and just lock the door and just be by myself. And there's times where I just want to cry in social situations, and actually this has happened just about 2 weeks ago. So it's not like it's a thing that doesn't happen anymore just because I'm not at school and not at university. But I think the difference between now and then is I understand myself a lot better, and I understand what's me versus what social anxiety is. I've also learned over time that my self-worth isn't attached to friendships. So I don't define myself by friendships anymore. I don't try and change myself for friendships anymore, just in the same way that I don't attach my self-worth to work or to relationships or anything like that. I no longer get upset if a friendship doesn't work out, because I have this understanding now that I didn't back then, that people change. People are allowed to change their minds, and I've really learned to see myself for just myself and not attach it to what situations I have going on around me. Because at the end of the day, we all have struggles, whether that's friendship struggles or relationship struggles or career struggles, health struggles, but those things don't have to define us. And I think that's the difference between now and when I was 18. When I was 18, those struggles really defined me. They defined how I saw myself. But now I'm much better at stepping away from it and being able to separate myself from whatever else is going on. I still, to some degree, feel those feelings of overthinking when I'm with people, but not all the time. And funnily enough, since starting YouTube, I've met loads of people and made loads of friends. And this is something that I never thought that was possible 10 years ago. I remember my boyfriend at university always saying to me, just don't worry, your time will come, you'll meet your people, you just have to be patient, you just have to wait, and they will eventually find you. And I never believed him because I was so convinced that I had no capabilities of making friends. I just thought that would never happen. And slowly but surely, with every social encounter that I have, I've begun to prove myself wrong and prove my 18-year-old self wrong. I still don't have friends in the conventional sense of what we see on TV shows like Friends or movies or even on social media. For example, I didn't have a hen do or a bridal shower because I don't have this girl group that I can, pull together. I'm friends with individual people, and that actually works out better for me. And I know that those friendships might evolve over time or change or completely dissipate, and that's okay as well. This is a really long, rambly video. I actually feel like I've just had a therapy session by talking to the camera about all of this, but I just hope that it helps anyone who is struggling with friendships. And I think just understanding that everyone has struggles, and those struggles just don't have to be part of defining who you are. So stay intentional and go create some magic.